Welcome back to another episode of Tractor Roy. My name is Trent. We're going to be working on a Farmall M here. When we were pressure washing it, somebody had taken like just some caulking, some like white house silicone caulking, and sealed up the bottom of this thing because it was, well, obviously leaking. And once the pressure washer hit it, took it off, we got a pretty good drip, and we don't want that on any new paint. So we're going to pop that off, fix that seal, and probably fix the seal on the other side too while we're at it. So what I'm going to do, I'll remove this drawbar. We got a lot going on here, but I'll remove the drawbar. I got to take off the wheel weights. I got to take off the rim, get the center out. Oh, and then we'll go in through the PTO here to get the end of the bowl gear off, so that way we can separate this axle housing. And then, clean that up, reseal it, and slap it all back together, and do the same thing on the other side. So to be doing this, I'm going to be using this Viver 3/4 inch socket set. It's only like, I think it was less than $100 for sure on Amazon. I'll throw a link up, but using that link helps me out. Doesn't cost you anything extra. But we're going to use this because some of these are pretty freaking big, and probably have to end up using that, either the breaker bar or that ratchet. I don't know if the impact will take care of these wheel hubs. Oh, my Milwaukee one has a dead battery. I don't know if this one will do it. It probably will, but... Ooh, somebody boogered it up. Oh, yeah. Like a dream. One thing about these wheel weights is they're just metal, so you can just drop them on the ground. Maybe. Well, that looks goofy, doesn't it? Oh. So there's going to be two here, two on the other side. And then this might be kind of difficult. Actually, might not be. Anyways, we're going to have to take this the center off, but I'll probably try and take the tire off first. But we'll see. Anyways, I got to do the other side. And then, we're going to work on that drawbar real quick. Ooh, that was gross. So this isn't what the oil is supposed to look like. Got the drawbar off, got the wheel off, got the tire off, and I started draining this, and there's a couple of gallons of water in the bottom, which doesn't really surprise me with how long this sat. But this is kind of surprising. This is kind of nasty. And the whole thing's been like this, so hopefully the water wasn't like super low, and then all this basically grease just stuck to those all the gears in there and protected them from rust. Yeah, I don't know. This is nasty. This looks like no gear oil I've ever seen. It's supposed to be 90 weight in the back of this thing. Okay, apologies for this one. I jumped around a lot because I got my kids with me, and it just kind of gets hard sometimes. It's, I obviously have to pay more attention to them than what I'm doing, so the order kind of gets broken up weird. Anyways, so I've got the drawbars taken off. They welded that one on. I'll probably cut it off. I got another one, but I kind of want to put it on one of my M's. I don't know, we'll see. Anyways, got the drawbar off, got the wheel weights off of both sides, got the tire off, it's over there. Center's here. Got the PTO shield off. I did take off the PTO. It's just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. And then there's 3 for the cover. That one's broken. I should probably pull it. Well, got this thing disconnected. It's just stuck in here and has 2 bolts on there right now. I was draining that, and then as you saw, it just was tar. So that took forever dealing with that. And yeah, it was bad. So now where we're at, inside of here, there's not much you can see because it's all black. The bowl gear, one sits right here and the other sits right here. They're attached to the end of the axle, so you can't pull that axle out without removing that bowl gear, just like you can't pull this housing out. There's a bearing here in the end, and there's a bearing here on this end, so it's not like you could just pull, like you can't pull the housing over the axle, you can't pull the axle out on its own. So what you do is we'll take this PTO off, take it all the way out, reach in there, and then take that nut off the end of that bowl gear. And then with that nut off, that bowl gear stays in the case basically. You can get to it from either taking off this top cover or coming in through the PTO. This is really heavy and I don't want to take it off, so we're going to go in through the PTO. Then we're going to take off the bolts that are around here. Once that's loosened up, those are all off. Then you can kind of support the end here, probably best with 2 people. Wiggle that up and down, and we should be able to use a pry bar to pop that off. Once that's off, then we can clean those gasket surfaces. We're just going to use some gasket maker on there, really glob it on, make sure it's really clean first, and then glob it on. And then assembly will be the same thing. You pop that on there, then you got to try and thread that bowl gear onto the end of the spline, or the splined end of the axle, and then, yeah, tighten it up from there. Tighten up those bolts, blah, blah, blah. Seal that back up. We're probably going to do that side because even though this kind of sucks, we're like pretty much all the way there. We just have to take the tire and that off. So I'll be back on this hopefully tomorrow, maybe the next day. Anyways, the magic of editing, you won't tell. But sorry for the drawbar. You know, there's like 4 bolts, basically 2 on each side, and then the pin in the middle where it hooks to the belly of the tractor. Take that off and the drawbar comes off pretty easy. Same thing with the wheels. They're pretty easy too. Once you get that wheel weight off, then you just remove these clamps all the way around. Make sure the tractor's jacked up because that's what's holding the weight. Take off those wheel clamps, and then there's 2 bolts on this side, 2 bolts on the other side. This one isn't packed full of stuff. I'm sure somebody's taken it off in the last couple of decades. So on that other side, this one just dropped right down and I was able to just pull it out. And then if, you know, sometimes you have to wiggle it, but this one was no big deal. So yeah. We'll go from there. So my apologies for jumping around there. There's not really much going on inside this thing. And it's not like I can stick that camera through this PTO hole where you can see anything. So what I've done, on the end of the bowl gear, on the end of the axle, there's that washer there that holds that bowl gear tight to the axle. And then there's the bolt that ties in. There's nothing else in here. It's just right here. The axle comes in right there. The bolt's on the other side with that washer holding it on. There's no thrust washer or anything here that you have to worry about. So I took off that bolt on the inside. I take out these 7 bolts, and then I just had to get in here with a pry bar on each side and just wiggle it. Keep wiggling it, keep working it off. This is possible with 2 people. It's not bad. I wouldn't want to like hold it forever, but it's not terrible. So now what I'm going to do, just take brake clean to both surfaces, and then I'm going to put some Permatex Right stuff instead of a gasket right along here and then along this inside here. The bearing gets held in. Like I said, there's no thrust washer. This bearing retainer holds it all in there. This one is just beautiful. I'm able to turn the axle, both the inner and the outer bearings are good. If we go to put this in and that outer seal or the outer axle seal is leaking, that one's not a big deal. Just pull off the tire. I think it's a felt packing, and there should also be a lipped oil seal in there too, but I don't really want to mess with that right now. Well, probably shoot myself in the foot later doing that, but oh well. So we kind of got a mess here. This side, I took that bowl gear off, pulled this axle housing completely off. That was absolutely terrible. I would not recommend doing that. Trying to get that bowl gear back onto this after you get the trying to put the bowl gear on without having access through this top cover is so hard. I mean, you're reaching your hand. You can get 2 in there, but not at a good angle. So you get 1 hand in there trying to pick up that 70-pound bowl gear to hold it in place. So we ended up what, my father-in-law had that pry bar, or had that digging bar in here against that center hole of the bowl gear. We had a little washer underneath it to pick it up so it was centered in this hole. I stuck the housing on, and we kind of got it started by turning the shaft to get the splines lined up in that bowl gear. While he was holding onto the pry bar, holding the bowl gear, I was holding onto the axle housing to get it centered up right, and then my wife was on a sledgehammer on the end of this axle. Sounds terrible, but we knew that that bowl gear was started, and him and I fought that for probably, I don't know, it was a few hours at least until we finally just kind of gave up, got everything fit up at once, and it seriously took 3 people to get that on there. So unless you're taking this top cover off, I wouldn't take the bowl gear off. And it was kind of embarrassing, so I didn't really want to show that. So what we're going to do on the other side here is we've got the bolts for the housing removed, and this is as far as the bowl gear will let it come out. And it's not quite enough to get in there and really clean that sealing surface, or that gasket surface. You could, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that bolt, break it loose, and leave a couple of threads in. Should be able to pull that bolt out half, 3/4, maybe an inch, something around there, but I'll get it just enough threads so it won't pull off. And then I'll separate this housing a little bit farther so it'll pull that bowl gear off the splines of the axle, and hopefully give us about, like, I'd like enough to get my fingers in here so I can really take my scraper, clean that sealing surface up, get some brake clean on there, really nice. So we're going to do that, then we'll stick some Permatex in there and get it around the bolt holes all nice after we get that gasket surface cleaned up. And then we should just be able to pull this back together without removing the housing. One downfall of that is that inner seal. We're not going to be able to seal totally. Like, I can't get the caulking gun down in there to get that inner seal, but it's not that big of a deal as long as we get this outer seal nice, because there is a hole in the bottom here. So the fluid can go between these two housings down low. So even if we don't have this seal right here, it'll just drain back through that hole. It's not a huge deal to knock through that inner seal. Kind of rambling on, but so I'm going to go ahead and try and get this bowl gear bolt loosened up, backed off a lot, and I'll get this axle housing separated. There's not going to be much to see in here while I'm doing this, but basically you stick your hand in here, feel for that bolt, if I can find the right size here. And then how I did it was stuck my breaker bar. This is a 3/4 inch set, so the socket is a 1 inch, so it'd work on a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch sockets go up to 1.25 inches. Once you hit 1 5/16, then you got to switch to 3/4. So while I fight this thing, oh, this one's not as bad, I don't think. Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, so there's not enough room for my ratchet to work. Anyways. Okay, so it's a 1 inch socket. I'm gonna stick it here on the end. I've already broken it loose, so it shouldn't be terrible for this small of a ratchet. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to back this off a ways, but I got to make sure that this bolt doesn't come all the way, or that I don't try and pull this axle with this bolt all the way out. So there's the big washer. It's got a lock washer on there. I'm going to take the lock washer out, so I'm just going to thread this bolt in. You know, a couple of threads. Make sure it has good engagement. There's not going to be any torque on here, so it's not that big of a deal that I'm going to be, you know, as long as I don't really pry it when I'm taking this thing apart. So I got good solid engagement. I've probably got 3/4 or better of an inch of movability now. As you can see now, it's not a very big gap, so I'll try and wiggle this out, but I might have to pry. I might have to get another person too. Yeah, I might need some help.
Wiggle it?
Yeah, wiggle it up and down and all.
No, I can't.
You're just pushing it in.
I am?
Oh, wait, keep wiggling. I don't know. Oh. God, we still got a ways we can go. Yeah, I mean, it's probably good enough.
Try that.
Yeah. Yep, now I just get a clean.
Yeah. How was it? Oh.
Oh yeah, that thing was totally separated though. It wasn't stuck to the housing anymore.
Oh, yeah?
Which makes sense why they put that caulking on. So you saw me get that off. Now I just got to go around making sure I get all that gasket, the old gasket that failed, off. So I'm just going to go through with my scraper and just start cleaning stuff up, and then I'm just going to spray it with brake clean and rub it with a rag. This outer surface, like I said before, is the only one I'm really worried about. I can reach that inner one, so if I can get it in there, my caulk gun in there, to try and get some sealer on there, then I will. But yeah, this old gasket's well used. The top was pretty good, but that bottom just separated and wasn't sealing anymore. So, lots of brake clean, scraping, more brake clean, really drying it up. And then yeah, I'll reach in there with that caulk gun. And now you can move this axle housing, you can rotate it around so I can get to some tighter spots a little easier that way. That's all there is to it. Once I get this new gasket squirted in there, I'll go ahead and try and start seating this, get this housing lined up, and suck it down. And then once I get these bolts all sucked down, then I'll just put that bowl gear nut, or that bowl gear bolt, tighten it back up, and we'll be ready to go. Ready to rock, get this other center put back on, get the drawbar put back on. Oh, we got to do with PTO too. I'll use that same right stuff. I still got to clean some of this gasket off. But yeah, that easy. Once we get this thing all put back together and driving, then we'll fill this full of diesel. It takes 13 gallons of fluid in here. We'll drive it around with that diesel, and it'll take the rest of that pourable grease that'll thin it all out, clean everything up real nice. Then we'll drain that and then put some fresh fluid in there. Be good to go. So I didn't really want to bore you with the details, but it's in. As you can see, we got some good squeeze out all the way around. Same thing on the PTO. We did that with some Permatex Rite stuff. Got that all on there. It has some good squeeze out also. And that's all there is to it. I backed off that nut or that bolt a little bit so we could pull the bowl gear out so we could get a little more space there. When you go to push that back in, make sure you do it a little here and then tighten it up a little bit here and then push it in a little there, and just keep working it like that. Don't push this axle housing too far in, otherwise it'll bind up that gear against the bowl pinion at kind of an angle and it'll wedge and won't be happy. Now that this is all sealed up, then we'll throw some diesel in there, drive it around a little bit. That way it splashes all over those gears, gets that old grease out, and then we'll drain it again. We had issues. That side was spinning fine. This side we could not get it with a pipe wrench. This side we couldn't get with a pipe wrench. It turns out that brake drum was stuck, or that brake band. When we took the cover off, you can see a bunch of junk fell out. So I kind of wonder if it was just wedged there against the bottom of that band, or that was just all seized up with rust and wasn't letting it turn. But now that turned, the axle turned, and we're good to go. So this one was a little bit different than normal. I kind of skipped through a bunch of stuff because, yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just trying to be fast with it. So, sorry. If you have any other questions, throw in the comments down below. I can help answer some of this stuff that I didn't show in the video if you have any other questions about this. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Like I said, throw a comment if you got any questions, concerns, what have you. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already so you can keep track of what we're doing on this thing. Now I got to assemble some pieces and clean this thing again and hopefully be on the way for painting. And anyways, thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching Tractor Roy. Hope I'll catch you on the next one.